Hello, chefs. Today we talk pork, the king of proteins, its different applications, and how to master it. I am Mark Grigsby, your chef and guide through this experience, and this is the IncrEDIBLE Discourse.
All systems go.
Hello and welcome to the finale episode of the IncrEDIBLE Discourse. We made it through the entire first season. I'm so excited because we finally reached this huge milestone. I had no idea where this project would take me when I started last November. But here we are, and I couldn't be happier with the result. We're at 100 plus organic subscribers and over 120,000 views on our shorts in our very first season. To me, someone who has no idea about the podcasting world, I'd say that's pretty damn good. I appreciate all of you who tune in and listen week in and week out, comment on all of our shorts, episodes, and posts. You have driven me to this point, and now we can celebrate a huge win by concluding this season with a banging episode. But just because we're having a celebratory party today doesn't mean that we slip on what we regularly do. So, with that, if you haven't already or are new to the show, hit that like and subscribe button and help us keep this momentum going into next season. Next season is going to be killer. I'm already planning and setting everything up, and for those of you who have already liked and subscribed, or even if you haven't, you're not going to want to miss what's coming. Your favorite podcast on the internet is about to get that much sweeter, so get your asses ready, because it's coming. And so now that that's out of the way, let's truly get this party started. So, you'll find him everywhere, from barbecue pits to ramen bowls to fine dining plates and backyard grills. No matter where you eat it or who's behind the stove, there's a good chance pork is somewhere close by. And you hear it before you see it, that slow, steady sizzle, the sound of fat meeting fire, the kind of sound that makes a cook stop mid-sentence and look toward the line. And that aroma, it's unmistakable. Sweet, savory, rich, like nostalgia and indulgence all rolled into one. And pork has a way of pulling people in. It doesn't matter if it's smoky pulled shoulder on a paper plate or a perfect little cube of crispy belly on fine china. It's universal. It's connective. It's home and luxury all at once. You see, pork isn't just another protein. It's the king, the backbone of cuisines around the world, the workhorse of every kitchen that knows how to cook with soul and purpose. And that's exactly where we're going today. Because this episode isn't just about pork, it's about mastery. It's about patience and process and respect, the same things we've been preaching all season long. And pork is the perfect teacher. It rewards care and punishes ego, and it exposes everything you don't know about heat, seasoning, and control. If you can cook pork right, and I mean really right, you can cook anything. This is it, folks. The season finale of the IncrEDIBLE Discourse. And today, we're crowning the king of proteins. So here's what we're going to do today. We're not just talking about pork chops or pulled shoulder. We're breaking down why this ingredient earns its crown. We'll start with the foundations, the history, the anatomy, and the science that make pork one of the most versatile proteins on the planet. And then we'll move into the home kitchen where control, timing, and understanding your tools can turn a simple cut into something spectacular. After that, we'll step behind the pass and into the professional kitchen where pork becomes more than just dinner. It becomes discipline. It's about systems, waste control, precision, and respect for the craft. And as we close out this first season, we're going to tie it all together. The patience, the respect, the technique, everything we've built episode after episode. Because this one isn't just about cooking pork. It's about what pork can teach you about being a better cook, a better leader, and a better student of the craft. So, before we start talking technique, let's lay the foundation. Because to really understand why pork wears that crown, you've got to know where it came from. And pork's story isn't just about meat. It's about survival, innovation, and culture. This animal has literally been feeding civilizations for thousands of years, long before we started arguing about sear temperatures and resting times. And from the very beginning, people learned that the pig could do it all. It was a walking pantry. Meat, fat, organs, skin, bones. Nothing ever wasted. Every single part had a purpose. In a world without refrigeration, that meant everything. And that's where the art of preservation was born. Salt, smoke, air, and time. The first 4 ingredients that built entire cuisines. The Romans cured their hams. The Chinese mastered sweet soy and 5-spice. The Spanish built empires on jamon and chorizo. The Hawaiians slow-roasted whole pigs in the ground. And then, of course, there's barbecue, the great American love language. From the Carolinas to Texas, every pitmaster carries the torch of tradition that started with necessity, turning tough, fatty cuts into something worth celebrating. What began as a way to stretch food for the week became an expression of pride and patience and identity. Every culture that embraced pork made it their own, because pork has range. It can be elegant or rustic, or cured or fresh, or humble and decadent. It adapts to climate, culture, and creativity. And that's the mark of a king: versatility. So, before we even talk about the cuts or the science, remember this. Pork's legacy wasn't written by chefs in white coats. It was written by people trying to make the most of what they had. And in doing so, they created flavor systems that still define us today. If you've ever broken down a whole pig, you know right away it's the ultimate anatomy lesson. Every cut tells a story. Every muscle teaches you something different about fat, collagen, and connective tissue. So let's start with the shoulder, sometimes called the butt or the picnic. It's dense, full of connective tissue, and marbled with fat that runs deep. That's why it begs for time. Low and slow transforms it. All that collagen breaks down into gelatin, turning something tough into something tender enough to fall apart with a spoon. The shoulder teaches you patience, and you just can't rush it. Then there's the loin, the delicate side of the pig. Lean, tender, and unforgiving if you don't treat it right. And this is where control matters the most. Temperature, timing, and rest. You go even a few degrees too high and it dries out on you. But nail it and you get the cleanest bite on the animal. Buttery, subtle, and balanced. The loin teaches you precision. And move down to the belly. This one is my personal favorite. It's rich, fatty, layered with flavor. This is where technique meets creativity. You can braise it, roast it, cure it, smoke it. The key is understanding how fat behaves. It renders slowly, releasing sweetness into the body and everything around it. The belly teaches you respect for balance and knowing when to cut the richness with acid, crunch, or brightness. And then there's the ham, the back leg. It's muscle, powerful, lean, and built for work. That means you've got to either cure it or cook it gently. It's the foundation of charcuterie. You know, prosciutto, country ham, jambon de Beyond, and all born from time, salt, and patience. The ham teaches you craftsmanship. And we can't forget the ribs. Nature's reminder that texture is just as important as flavor. They've got fat, meat, and bone all working together, and the trick is coaxing each part to cooperate. Ribs teach you timing, knowing when the meat is ready to let go of the bone, but not so long that it falls apart and loses structure. Every part of the pig demands something different from you, a different mindset, a different technique, a different kind of respect. You don't just cook pork. You learn from it. And if you pay attention, the pig will make you a better cook long before you ever call yourself a chef. Once you understand the anatomy, you start to see the science behind it. Because cooking pork isn't just about recipes, it's about chemistry. It's about learning how heat transforms muscle, fat, and collagen into flavor and texture. So let's start with fat rendering. That's where flavor lives. Every little pocket of fat inside the muscle, intramuscular fat, marbling, that's the good stuff. It's what carries flavor, moisture, and that mouthfeel. But it doesn't release on demand. It melts slowly. Low and slow isn't just a barbecue slogan. It's a biological truth. You give that fat time and it rewards you by basting the meat from within, layer by layer. The goal isn't to make it disappear. It's to make it work for you. The difference between greasy and juicy is temperature control. The difference between chewy and silky is patience. And then there's collagen conversion, the magic trick that separates tough from tender. Collagen is the ropey connective tissue that holds muscle fibers together. When it's raw, it's chewy and resistant. But once you apply steady heat, not blazing and not rushed, it breaks down into gelatin. That gelatin gives you that luxurious, lip-coating texture we crave in pulled pork and braises and roasts. It's what we mean when we say, it melts in your mouth. It's not softness, it's transformation. It's the payoff for time and technique. And finally, the evolution of safety and flavor. The part that still surprises a ton of people. For decades, everyone was taught to cook pork to 160 degrees, dry it out, and pray it wasn't pink. And that came from a time when trichinosis was a real threat. But farming, inspection, and food safety have evolved. And today, the USDA recognizes 145 degrees as the safe internal temperature for whole muscle cuts, followed by a short rest. And that rest isn't just for safety, it's for flavor. It allows juices to redistribute, collagen to finish its conversion, and the fibers to relax. So, yeah, a blush of pink in your pork chop isn't a mistake anymore. It's the mark of a cook who knows what they're doing. That's the beauty of pork science. It teaches you control. You learn to manage heat, moisture, and time instead of fighting them. And once you understand why those things matter, you stop cooking by fear and start cooking with purpose. You want to know how you can tell pork is royalty? Look at the way the entire world cooks it. Every culture found its own way to honor this animal. And every version tells a different story about time, technique, and identity. Start with lechon, a whole roasted pig, the centerpiece of every Filipino, Puerto Rican, and Cuban celebration. That's not just food, that's an event. It's fire, community, and patience. Hours of basting, turning, and tending until the skin turns glassy and the meat practically collapses under its own weight. It's the definition of reverence. You don't rush a lechon, you earn it. And then you've got prosciutto, the Italian art of restraint. Salt, air, and time, and nothing else. It's the complete opposite of the lechon's open fire, yet it demands the same patience. You hang a leg in a cool, dry room, and you let the nature do the work. It's about trust. Trust in your process, your environment, and your discipline. Head a little bit east, and you hit tonkatsu, the Japanese expression of precision. A perfectly breaded pork cutlet, fried golden and crisp on the outside and tender in the inside. Every cut exact, every motion deliberate. Even the sauce is balanced and intentional. It's the discipline of simplicity, doing one thing perfectly every single time. And then there's carnitas, Mexico's slow-cooked confit of pork shoulder. Simmered in its own fat until tender and then crisped just before serving. It's rustic genius, taking one pot, one ingredient, and creating layers of texture and flavor. It's the lesson of economy, use what you have and make it taste incredible. And of course, char siu, the Cantonese art of balance. Sweet, salty, smoky, sticky. Red lacquered pork hanging in the window like a promise. It's flavor engineering, blending sugar, soy, and spice in perfect proportion to turn an ordinary cut into something unforgettable. Each of these dishes, from lechon to char siu, proves the same point. Pork is the most versatile canvas in the kitchen. It adapts to technique, culture, and creativity. It can be cured, roasted, fried, braised, or smoked, and somehow it always tells a story. And when you really step back, you realize something bigger. Every one of these dishes started as a way to preserve, to celebrate, or to survive. But over time, they became a way to connect to culture, to history, to each other. That's why pork isn't just food. It's a through line, connecting cooks across continents and generations. Now, here's where a lot of cooks lose the crown. Pork will teach you fast if you don't respect it. The first mistake? Overcooking lean cuts. The loin and the tenderloin are built for precision, not punishment. You hit them with too much heat, and all that beautiful moisture evaporates. You end up with chalk instead of silk. The difference between juicy and dry is about 10 degrees, and the discipline to stop before it's done. The second mistake is under-seasoning fattier cuts. A pork belly or shoulder can take a hit of salt, spice, and acid because they need it. And fat carries flavor, but only if you give it something to carry. Bland fat is wasted potential. You have to season with intention and trust that time will balance it all out. And finally, ignoring carryover heat. I feel like we talk about this so often, and yet here it is again. That resting period after cooking isn't optional. It's science. Heat continues to move through the meat even after you pull it from the pan or the oven. If you wait for perfect on the stove, you're already 10 degrees too late. You got to let it rest and let it finish itself. That patience separates professionals from fucking pan flippers. And here's the truth. Pork is the perfect teacher. It rewards patience, precision, and discipline. And it punishes ego faster than any chef could on any line ever. You can't fake your way through it. You can't rush it. It forces you to listen to your pan, to your thermometer, to your instinct. So, as we move into the next segment, I want you to think about this. If pork can teach us patience and control in the kitchen, what can it teach the home cook standing over the same stove? Because whether you're cooking for your family or running a Saturday night service, the lessons are all the same. Timing, respect, and a little bit of trust in the process. And so, with Piggy on the brain, you know what time it is. It's time for
Food for Thought.
or what I like to call
Pro tips from the chef's list.
if there's one thing I want home cooks to understand, it's this. Great pork doesn't start in the pan. It starts with the pig. You have all the fancy thermometers, the cast iron, the marinades, but if you're cooking low-quality meat from a stressed-out animal, you're already fighting an uphill battle. The best cooks, at home or in a professional kitchen, know that sourcing is the first ingredient. Look for pork that's pasture-raised or humanly farmed. You want animals that have lived clean, eaten clean, and grown naturally. That translates into flavor and tenderness and better fat composition. The kind of fat that melts clean and sweet, not greasy and heavy. And when you're standing at the butcher's counter, don't be afraid to ask questions. Like, what breed is this? Or what were they fed? Or is it heritage or commercial? A good butcher will be proud to tell you where it came from. And if they don't know, that should tell you something about your butcher. Now, visually, look for marbling. Thin veins of intramuscular fat are gold. They tell you that the meat will baste itself as it cooks. Avoid meat that looks pale, dry, or wet and shiny. It's usually pumped with solution or water weight. You want natural color, a little firmness, and fat that's creamy white, not waxy or disgusting gray. And here's a detail most people overlook: the smell. Real quality pork smells clean, almost sweet. If it has a sour or metallic note, buck that shit, walk away. Knowing your source isn't some foodie trend, it's an insurance policy. When you buy from farms or butchers who care, you're getting an animal that was raised with intention. That means consistency, integrity, and peace of mind every time you cook. And cooking starts long before you turn on the stove. It starts with curiosity. Ask questions, build relationships, and buy meat you stand behind. Because the truth is simple. You can't cook great food without great product. And when it comes to pork, respect for the ingredient begins with respect from where it came from. When it comes to cooking pork, or anything really, your tools aren't just gear. They're extensions of your discipline. The right tools make you more consistent, more efficient, and more confident. And in the kitchen, confidence equals control. So let's start with the instant read thermometer. If you don't own one, stop guessing and buck and get one. It's not cheating, it's precision. Every time you cut into a pork chop to check and see if it's done, you're letting the juice and the flavor pour out onto the board instead of staying in the fucking meat. A thermometer takes the doubt out of the process. It's the difference between panic and patience. And thermometers are fucking cheap, so stop getting fucking... Just get a thermometer. Just get one. Instant read. Amazon. Next up, cast iron. And there's a reason every serious cook owns one. Because cast iron gives you even heat, perfect sear, and flavor that builds over time. It's not delicate, it's dependable. And once it's seasoned properly, it'll outlive you. Use it for chops, for belly, for roasts. It holds heat like nothing else and gives you that crust that you can't fake with any other piece of equipment. Amazon also has this. Next piece of equipment, a roasting rack or even a few vegetables under the meat. Keep it lifted so that air and heat can circulate evenly. Crisp edges, no soggy bottoms. Add a solid pair of tongs and you've got everything you need to move, flip, and baste without stabbing or tearing. And finally, the most important tool in your kitchen, a sharp chef's knife. Not expensive, not flashy, just sharp. Dull knives cause accidents and ruin a product. A clean slice preserves the grain and texture, whether you're trimming silver skin off a tenderloin or carving a roast. Sharp knives mean cleaner cuts, cleaner plates, and cleaner work. And here's another truth. Great cooking doesn't happen by luck. It happens by preparation. The right tools don't make you a great cook, but they do remove the barriers between you and consistency. You wouldn't build a fucking house without the right tools, so don't try to build flavor without them either. Every cut of pork has its own rhythm, its own personality. If you treat them all the same, you'll end up frustrated because pork isn't one note. It's a whole symphony of fat, muscle, and texture. The trick is learning how to let each cut play its part. So, let's start with the chops. This is where most people go wrong, fast. They think high heat, short time, done. But pork chops need a little bit more finesse than that. You want that sear, that deep golden crust that builds flavor through the Maillard reaction. But you can't just crank the heat and hope for the best. Sear one side hard, flip, and then finish gently, either by lowering the heat or sliding the pan into the oven and coast up to the temp. A thermometer is your lifeline here. Pull at 140 to 143 degrees and let it rest. The carryover heat will take it the rest of the way to perfection. Juicy, tender, blushing in the center, and that's how it's supposed to be. Then there's the shoulder, the workhorse of the entire pig. Full of flavor, full of collagen, and begging for time. You don't rush this cut, whether you're braising it in broth or roasting it slow, or maybe you're turning it into pulled pork. The shoulder rewards patience. Low and slow isn't just a style, it's a requirement. That slow heat melts collagen into gelatin, turning what started tough into something that literally falls apart. Don't shortcut this process because time builds tenderness. And now the belly. This one's pure indulgence, rich and fatty and unctuous. It's the playground for chefs because it teaches control. You have to render that fat low and slow before you go for crisp. Too much heat too soon, and you'll scorch the outside before the inside ever catches up. And once that fat is melted down and basted the meat, then you crank the heat and chase that crunch. And don't forget balance. The belly demands acid. A splash of vinegar, a citrus glaze, pickled vegetables, something to cut through the richness and keep you coming back for another bite. And finally, the tenderloin. This is the leanest, most delicate cut on the pig, and it's also the most misunderstood. Everyone treats it like a chicken breast, and that's the first mistake. Tenderloin is quick cooking and subtle. You want a hot sear for color and flavor, but the real secret is the rest. Pull it early, around 140 degrees, and give it time to relax. It'll finish perfectly on its own. Slice it right, and you have a silky, tender result that needs nothing more than a little salt, a little acid, and maybe a touch of sauce. And here's the through line across every cut. It's control. Each piece of pork is a lesson in balance between heat and patience, between fat and acid, between ego and restraint. If you can cook pork well, it means you've learned to listen to your pan, to your instincts, and the product in front of you. If pork teaches you patience through technique, it teaches you balance through flavor. Because let's be honest here, pork on its own is rich, fatty, and neutral in all the best ways. That means it's a blank canvas, and what you put around it decides whether it sings or it falls flat. At the heart of every great pork dish is a triangle: salt, acid, and sweetness. You get those three in harmony, and you can take pork anywhere in the world. Start with salt, because it's not just a seasoning, it's a tool. Salt unlocks moisture, sharpens flavor, and gives structure to everything that it touches. Whether it's a dry brine the day before or a simple sprinkle before searing, salt is your baseline. Think of it as tuning the instrument before you start playing. And then comes acid, your balance point. Acid cuts fat. It wakes the palate back up after every bite of richness. Vinegar, citrus, mustard, wine, these are your cleanup crew. A pork belly glaze without acid is just candy. Add vinegar or citrus and suddenly it's addictive. Even a squeeze of lemon over a chop changes the entire experience. And now for sweetness. And this is where pork shines. A little sugar in the rub, honey in the glaze, apple in the pan. That light caramel note builds contrast and complexity. Sweet doesn't mean sugary, it means balanced. A touch of sweetness magnifies salt and rounds the edges of the acid. And then you layer in herbs and smoke. Herbs like sage, thyme, rosemary, or fennel. They don't just add flavor, they add aroma. They remind you that pork came from something living, something earthy. And smoke does the same, but in a different register. It adds nostalgia, depth, and a sense of time. And finally, fruit. Apples, pears, citrus, even pineapple, they all bring brightness and natural acidity that play perfectly with pork's fat. It's not an accident those pairings have been around for centuries. They work because they fucking make sense. Here's the thing. Pork doesn't need a lot, but it does need the right things. A little acid to lift it, a touch of sweetness to balance it, and salt to make it come alive. Once you understand that, you stop following recipes and you start composing the fucking symphony yourself. Cooking pork is about harmony. It's about creating balance, bite after bite, until nothing's left on the plate but a clean bone and a satisfied grin. You can tell a lot about a cook by how they treat pork. Most of the time, the mistakes aren't huge. They're just habits. But habits separate a good meal from a great one. Let's review some of the crucial mistakes. Let's start with the biggest one, ignoring temperature. If you're still cooking by feel, guessing, or waiting until the meat looks done, you're gambling every time. Pork doesn't care how confident you sound. It only cares about precision. Get yourself a thermometer and fucking use it. It's not a crutch. It's control. You wouldn't drive without a speedometer, so why would you cook without a thermometer? Next, cooking cold meat straight from the refrigerator. That's like starting a race in quicksand. The outside burns before the inside even wakes up. Always let pork come to room temperature for 20 to 30 minutes before you cook it. You'll get an even heat, a consistent texture, and a better sear. And then there's the seem to be timeless fear of pink. It's safe now. 145 degrees and a proper rest, that's the line. That blush in the center, that's flavor, that's moisture, that's mastery. Overcooked pork is dry and stringy and fucking joyless. Stop letting fear ruin dinner. And skipping the rest time is another big one. The moment you pull that pork from the heat, it's still cooking inside. That's carryover heat, the final stage of the entire process. Cut it too early, and the juices end up on the board instead of in your bite. 5 minutes for chops, 10 minutes for roast. Let it rest, and then slice. And lastly, crowding the pan. If your pork is steaming in its own sweat, you're not searing, you're simmering. Give the meat room. Let air circulate and let the pan do its job. Brown is flavor, and flavor needs space. These aren't just little mistakes. They're lessons. Every one of them comes back to the same principle: control. Control of the heat. Control of the timing. Control of patience. And here are a few pro tips for cooking pork for the home cook. Season your pork 24 hours ahead. Salt isn't decoration, it's transformation. Render fat low and slow. Flavor doesn't come on demand. And never waste the drippings. That's breakfast flavor insurance. Those are your cornerstones, the habits that turn chaos into consistency. So that's the home cook's playbook. Simple systems, big payoffs. But in a professional kitchen, it's a whole different level of responsibility. And that's the thing about cooking at home. It teaches you control. But in a professional kitchen, control becomes something else entirely. It's not just about getting dinner right. It's about getting it right hundreds of times for hundreds of people all at once. It's about discipline. It's about systems. And it's about respect for your craft, for you, for your crew, and your product. Because in the pro world, pork isn't just another protein on the menu. It's a teacher, a test, and a responsibility. So let's start with the whole hog mindset. Every real chef, the ones who've earned their stripes, knows how to break down a pig. Not because they have to, but because they should. understanding the whole animal changes the way you think. Stop seeing cuts as items on a prep list and start seeing them as chapters in a story. The shoulder teaches you patience. The loin teaches you precision. The belly teaches you restraint. The ribs teach you timing. And the ham? That one teaches legacy. Knowing how to go from primal to plate isn't just about efficiency. It's about respect. It's about honoring the ingredient by understanding every inch of it. You learn the muscle groups, the grain direction, the yield percentages, because that's how you make decisions that protect both the food and the bottom line. When you know what each cut can become, waste becomes opportunity. Trim becomes sausage, bones become stock, fat becomes flavor. That's the mark of a professional. Nothing leaves the kitchen without a purpose. And that's why chefs learn from the whole hog. Because once you've taken the time to break one down, once you've seen what it can give you, the yield, the value, the flavor potential, you can't treat it carelessly ever again. Every cut tells a story. And as a chef, it's your job to make sure it's told right. In a professional kitchen, waste is the enemy, but respect is the weapon. And nowhere is that more true than with pork. Every chef who's worth their salt understands the nose to tail philosophy, the idea that every inch of the animal has value, and it's our job to find it. Nothing wasted, nothing forgotten. Take the trotters, the fucking feet, and turn them into a stock so rich it sets firm in the walk-in overnight. That gelatin, that's depth, that's mouthfeel, that's your secret weapon for soups, sauces, and reductions. You take the cheeks, small, tender, and often overlooked, and you make a special that reminds everyone why details matter. Slow braised, glazed, served over something bright and clean. That's finesse. You take the rinds, the skin, and you turn them into a crisp garnish, puffed chicharron or crumbled for texture. That's contrast. That's creativity. And the bacon fat, you never throw it away. That's liquid gold. It goes into vinaigrettes, sauté pans, and sauces that need a little smoke and a little soul. That's flavor economy, stretching every ounce into something meaningful. Even the head, you don't discard it, you use it. Head cheese, terrines, porchetta di testa, old school charcuterie that teaches patience, craft, and precision. It's not about luxury, it's about honoring the animal, nose to tail. Because when you've broken one down yourself, when you've seen how much work it takes to turn a life into food, you start to think differently. You don't just grab a chop and toss it on the grill. You consider the animal it came from, the farmer who raised it, and the skill it takes to make it shine. That's what separates cooks from craftsmen. It's not the dish you make. It's how you treat what's left behind. The nose-to-tail mindset isn't trendy. It's timeless. It's how to show gratitude through action by turning every scrap into something that tastes like intention. In a professional kitchen, waste isn't just a problem. It's a paycheck walking out the door. And any chef who's ever stared down a food cost report knows exactly what I'm talking about. And that's where waste control meets menu engineering. It's not glamorous, but it's the difference between a kitchen that survives and one that thrives. And pork gives you a masterclass in both. Trim becomes grind becomes sausage, bones become stock, scraps become terrine. That's not cutting corners. That's craftsmanship with intention. When you build a menu with systems in mind, you stop thinking in silos and you start connecting the dots. The pork shoulder you braised for tonight's special, the rendered fat can season tomorrow's greens. The stock you made from the bones, it becomes the base for a sauce that ties the whole menu together. That's cross-utilization. Every component paying rent. A good chef doesn't just write dishes. They write ecosystems. Every prep list, every special, every trim bucket has a purpose. When you hit that level of organization, you're not just saving money, you're creating flavor continuity. Every plate feels connected because everything that goes out of your kitchen started from the same thoughtful process. And here's the real secret. When you teach your team to think this way, they start to cook smarter too. They stop tossing scraps. They start asking questions. Chef, can we pickle this? Can we use this for staff meal? Can we possibly build a feature around it? That's when you know you've built culture, not just a kitchen. Turning trim into profit isn't about greed. It's about gratitude. It's how we say thank you to the ingredient and to the craft. Every piece counts. Every ounce matters. And every decision leaves a footprint. So why wouldn't you make it a good one? And here's where a lot of young cooks fall off. Not on the stove, but in the walk-in. Because cooking isn't just about what happens on the line. It's about what happens before service even starts. A professional kitchen runs on systems, not luck, not talent. Systems. Labeling, storage, FIFO, cross-utilization. These aren't suggestions, they're commandments. Every tray, every pan, every Cambro in your walk-in tells a story. And if it doesn't, you've already lost control. A proper label isn't just tape and a Sharpie, it's accountability. Date, time, initials. It's how you track freshness, rotation, and responsibility. When I walk through a kitchen and see unlabeled pans, I don't see food, I see waste waiting to happen. And FIFO, we've talked about this before in previous episodes, right? First in, first out. This is your financial safety net. It keeps inventory moving, prevents spoilage, and teaches discipline. When everyone on the team respects the system, the food stays clean, the margins stay tight, and the chaos stays out. And cross-utilization is where systems turn into profit. Yesterday's roasted bones becomes today's broth. That broth becomes tomorrow's sauce base. Pork fat skimmed off the top? That's what you use to saute your aromatics or flavor your greens. Nothing leaves the walk-in without a purpose. And here's a mindset shift that separates cooks from chefs. Treat pork trim like currency. Because it is. Every ounce you waste is money, flavor, and respect right down the drain. Trim isn't garbage, it's potential. It can be the start of a new dish, a family meal, or a feature that keeps the menu fresh. Running a disciplined kitchen means nothing gets lost. Not time, not product, not opportunity. Clean systems create clean cooking. Clean cooking builds trust. And trust is what lets your kitchen run like a machine instead of a fucking fire drill. And that's the chef's job. Control the chaos before it ever hits the plate. You can have all the systems in the world. Perfect labeling, organized prep lists, spotless walk-ins. But if you can't control timing, you're still behind. Because when the tickets start flying, timing is everything. Precision is the language of a professional kitchen. It's how you turn chaos into choreography. You can feel it when your crew is locked in. The line moves with a single heartbeat. Nobody guesses. Nobody rushes. Everyone knows exactly when to move, when to wait, and when to let the food do the work. And that's what timing really is. Restraint. Knowing when not to touch the pan. Knowing when to pull the meat out before it looks ready because you understand carryover heat. Knowing that the 10 seconds you give a pork chop to rest on the board is what turns it from good to great. You build that timing into your fire chart. It's not an afterthought. It's part of the plan. If you don't schedule rest periods into your cooking rhythm, you'll always be chasing the plate instead of commanding it. Then there's sear zone management. And every chef knows that feeling. The sound of fat hitting steel, the burst of aroma, the sizzle that fills the room. But managing that heat is an art. You can't blast everything on high and fucking hope for the best. You need zones, control points. One pan for searing, one for finishing, one for holding. That's how you balance consistency with speed. Carryover heat isn't just a technical note. It's a reminder that cooking continues after the flame's gone. The best chefs build that into their timing. They trust that process. They understand the physics, and they know exactly when to step away. Because precision isn't about perfection. It's about consistency. It's what separates cooks who react from chefs who anticipate. When you get timing right, everything in your kitchen feels lighter. Service flows. Food comes out balanced. The stress drops, and suddenly you're not fighting the fire. You're fucking leading it. And that's when you stop working the line and start running the pass. At the end of the day, you're not just cooking meat. You're honoring an animal that gave you this opportunity. That's not poetry, but it is reality. Somewhere, an animal gave its life so you could practice your craft, feed your guests, and make a living doing what you love. That alone deserves your full fucking respect. And respect starts the moment you touch the product. It's in how you store it, how you trim it, how you season it. It's in the care you take when you put it in the pan, and the patience you show when it needs time to rest. It's in your discipline. Because every careless mistake, every overcooked chop, every pan you let scorch, that's not just a bad plate. That's a waste of something that can't be replaced. And in a professional kitchen, that kind of waste isn't acceptable. I've always told my cooks, if you can't respect the ingredient, you can't honor the craft. And that means no shortcuts. No, it's good enough. Or no treating the product like inventory instead of opportunity. When you approach cooking with respect, it shows. It shows in the way your food tastes, in the way your station looks, in the way the team follows your lead. It changes your kitchen culture, because when you value what's in front of you, your crew starts to value it too. That's what separates a cook from a chef. A cook can make something taste good, but a chef makes it mean something. Every time you put pork on the menu, every time you slice into that chop or sear that belly or render that fat, you're carrying on a lineage of cooks who understood what it means to do it right. And doing it right isn't just about flavor, it's about gratitude. Every chef has a dish that defines them, a plate that tells the story of who they are and where they've been. For some, it's fine dining. For others, it's backyard barbecue. But for me, pork has always been the great equalizer, the ingredient that reveals a chef's identity. Pork connects regions, cultures, and kitchens. It's a Florida lechon roasting over coals. It's a Carolina whole hog barbecue, a Texas rib roast with smoke running through the night. It's Italian porchetta, French rillettes, Japanese tonkatsu. Every version speaks the same language: time, technique, and care. And that's what makes pork such a mirror for who you are as a cook. You can't fake it. You can't rush it. However you treat it, that's who you are. Do you respect it? Do you understand it? Do you give it time, attention, and purpose? Because that reflection shows up on the plate every single time. And that's also where teaching moments live. Every time I bring a new cook onto the line, I use pork as a lesson. Breaking down a shoulder teaches anatomy. Rendering fat teaches patience. Cleaning a station teaches discipline. Labeling trim teaches respect for value. It's not busy work. It's mentorship in motion. And I tell my team that butchery isn't about cutting fucking meat. It's about learning order. Prep isn't about volume. It's about consistency. Sanitation isn't about avoiding trouble. It's about honoring the craft. When they understand that, they start cooking with purpose and not panic. And that's when a kitchen becomes more than a workplace. It becomes a classroom. Because at the professional level, leadership isn't yelling tickets. It's building cooks who care. You train them to respect every step, every cut, every tray, and every plate. When they see how you move, they learn how to move. When they see how you treat the product, they learn how to treat the profession. That's the craft. That's the humility. And that's why pork wears the crown. Pork isn't just another ingredient. It's a reflection of everything cooking stands for. Technique, respect, efficiency, purpose. It's all there in just one animal. Every cut, every layer of fat, every muscle fiber is a lesson in patience and precision. Pork embodies the entire journey we've taken this season, from the basics of control and professionalism to the deeper truths about waste, discipline, and gratitude. It forces you to slow down, to listen, and to care. It doesn't lie to you. It tells you exactly what you did and what you didn't. It's humble, forgiving, and honest, but also mighty. It rewards intention and punishes arrogance. It's the great equalizer, the teacher that meets you where you are and challenges you to do better every time. When you can cook pork perfectly, when you can control the heat, manage the fat, balance the flavor, and honor the ingredient, you can cook anything. Because at that point, you've earned more than just skill. You've earned understanding. And that's the lesson. That's the craft. That's the heart of every kitchen worth working in. So, as we close the book on this season, it feels right to step back for a second, to look at everything we've built, everything we've learned, and how far this little kitchen conversation has come. From the very first episode, it's always been about the basics, about mastering skills, not memorizing recipes. And along the way, we've covered professionalism, knife work, sauces, vegetables, emulsions, sous vide, and now pork, the king of proteins. Every topic was a building block, another layer and foundation of real cooking. And I'll be honest, this show has actually taught me as much as I've taught through it. Revisiting these fundamentals reminded me of why I fell in love with this craft in the first place. The discipline, the chaos, the humility it demands. It reminded me that whether you're behind a food truck or a fine dining line or your own home stove, we're all chasing the same thing. Better flavor, better systems, better control. And we've built a foundation together, brick by brick, episode by episode. And if you've been cooking along this whole time, then you already know. Growth doesn't happen overnight. It happens one cut, one sauce, one mistake, and one small victory at a time. So as I wrap season 1, I want to say thank you to every listener, student, home cook, and fellow chef who tuned in, took notes, and put these lessons into action. You made this more than a podcast. You made it a kitchen worth standing in. So, before we move on, ask yourself, what did you learn this season, and what's the next skill you're ready to sharpen? Because that's the real takeaway. Skills over recipes, respect over shortcuts, and systems over chaos. And just like any good service, when one course ends, another begins. Season 1 was about building the foundation, technique, respect, and control. But season 2, that's where we take it higher. This next round, we're stepping into video podcasting, bringing faces to the voices and stories you've been hearing all season. We're bringing in guest chefs, real cooks, real stories, real lessons, all from the trenches. We're diving deeper into global cuisines, advanced systems, and the kind of topics that push cooks past comfort and into mastery. Season 2 is where we turn knowledge into mastery, where cooks become chefs and chefs become leaders. We're sharpening the blade, leveling up the craft, and expanding the incredible discourse into something even bigger. Because we're not done talking about food, we're just getting fucking started. And if this episode hit home for you, if it made you think differently about technique, or respect, or what it means to cook with purpose, then share this shit. I want to see your pork dishes, your prep systems, your processes. Post them with the hashtag #IncrEDIBLEDiscourse on X and show me what you've built from these lessons. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button wherever you listen to this. Spotify, YouTube, Amazon, anywhere you tune in. That's where you'll catch every new drop, every guest, and every next step into this journey. And if you want the deep dive, the recipes, the resources, the breakdowns, and the behind-the-pass insights, head to theincrediblediscourse.com. Everything we've talked about this season lives there, waiting for you to keep sharpening your skills and building your craft. Because this isn't just a show, it's a community of cooks and chefs and food lovers who give a shit about doing it right. Now, clean your station, sharpen your knife, and get ready, because the next course is already on board. I am Mark Grigsby, and this has been another amazing episode. The amazing season 1 of The Incredible Discourse. Thank you for listening, for learning, and being part of the journey.